Hello there everyone! After 9 months of waiting, we finally have more Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave news. Let's go ahead and dive into this new trailer. Same as last time, I'm just going to be going over my thoughts, impressions, reactions, anything that stands out to me or that I find interesting and of note, and just kind of exploring this new information and any clues we might find as to the scope or scale of the story moving forward. Starting off, we get a view of the map of Dagda. It's slightly zoomed in, cut off here, but we get a much better look at it from the map that's included in the Dagdan Collection Edition. From there, looking at the whole map, you can see not just the entirety of Dagda, but you can also see Morphus and Brigid. In fact, you can actually line it up with the map of Fodlan, and they connect perfectly. Now, I don't know how accurate to scale it is, or if it's because of them being two different maps, but when you do line them up like this, Fodlan looks really tiny compared to Dagda. It's actually kind of impressive how small Fodlan is in scale when compared to Dagda as a whole. The trailer more so focuses on the Dagdan Empire, since that is the core focus and starting point of the game, but it is pretty cool to see the whole map as a whole and the other areas around. Here we get a shot of two new characters, and these characters are interesting for one reason and one reason alone. There's a red one and a green one. Any Fire Emblem fan will know when you see red and green, that right there are your Christmas Cavaliers, your Cain and Abel. Now, we don't actually know if these characters are Cavaliers, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. Fire Emblem as a whole has kind of been moving away from Cavaliers and more so just doing red and green duos, which personally I'm completely fine with. I like the Cain and Abel archetype, but I also like kind of branching out and experimenting more. Regardless though, this does seem to fit into the archetype, so whatever class they will end up being, these two characters might have some kind of connection or some kind of relationship to fit into the Cain and Abel archetype. It was already pretty evident from the first trailer, but this one completely confirms these are our four main characters, and we are going to be choosing one of them to support. Something of note with Kai here, this might have been in the first trailer, and if so, I just completely missed it, but he has a red object in his palm. Considering the fact that this is where his crest symbol shows up, I believe that that is a crest stone itself. If it is a crest stone, then that's very interesting because typically crest stones are held in weapons. You don't really see crest stones on human skin, and the reason for that is because of the danger that it poses. When you do see instances of crest stones on human contact, typically it results in demonic beasts or monsters of some sort. The fact that he has a crest stone embedded into his palm, really curious what that's about, how that happened, and what it means for his character. This is further supported by the fact that there is a shot of him kind of reacting almost in pain. Maybe this is when the crest stone gets embedded into his palm, or maybe when his crest activates for the first time. But as a whole, I'm definitely really curious what more this crest stone has to offer. Not much new information is presented on Dietrich. Same as before, we know that he's a swordsman and that he's seeking a strong foe. Theodora here is listed as Queen of Saramis Kingdom. Looking back at the map of Dagda, the Saramis Kingdom is near the bottom, and it seems to be one of the smaller kingdoms. It's not entirely clear, I'm not too sure where exactly the borders are, or what is part of which kingdom, but it is near the south, very bottom, and it does appear to be one of the smaller kingdoms. This leads me to believe that her kingdom is perhaps one of the weaker ones, or that has less power compared to other stronger kingdoms. Maybe that's why she's seeking to get more strength in order to be able to lift her kingdom up and be able to have it on equal footing with the others so that there isn't any further threat of conquering or invasion. Lita here, once again, not too much new information, but just kind of reiterating her main driven goal is revenge. I really like the variety of characters here. In general, the character designs have been really varied, really nice. I really like the different styles, different colors, and just the overall feel of it. Something else here that is really interesting to me is that hanging in the background are banners, and those banners seem to have the crest of Albin on it. The crest of Albin is of course the crest that Kai possesses. Now maybe this is just kind of a home base, or maybe because this is Kai's point of view, Kai's route, that those banners are there, but if those banners exist just in general, even outside of Kai's route and Kai's perspective, then that leads me to be curious as to what role the crest of Albin plays. Considering that it was a lost crest and one of the 4 apostles, I really have to wonder if there's any major influence going on there, and that's why that crest appears so prominently in the background. There already in fact is some level of connection between the crest of Albin and Dagda. In Constance and Yuri's support in Fire Emblem Three Houses, we learn that Yuri's relic, the Feathers of Drami, were lost in the Brigid-Dagda War, and that it was considered a prized relic. What if the events of that war and the events of the Feathers of Drami being in Dagda in some way contributed to the Crest of Albin being seen as a prized treasure or being worshipped in Dagda in some way, shape, or form? Small little piece of information here, but the name of the individual that Lita is after is Lechner. Once again, I absolutely love the variety of designs. I love just how colorful everyone is right here. In general, Lita's group does seem to have an abundance of color and variety, so that's something that I really appreciate. Also, I just have to say, maybe it's just me, but Lita's design here, specifically her belt, waist, line strap area, that looks just like a pride flag. Of course, I don't think that's intentional, probably not on purpose, and probably means nothing at all, but hey, it's a cute little design fact. Go ahead, use it for your headcanon. Very, very important thing here is Fodlan mention. Of course, we already knew this was the world of Fodlan from everything, the crest, the demonic beast, Dagda, but Fodlan itself being directly mentioned is something of note, because it means Dietrich himself hails from Fodlan. That could explain why his armor, his design, is so drastically different from everyone else. Maybe he's the only one that's directly from Fodlan, and everyone else is more native to Dagda or has lesser connections. The fact that he describes Answerer as a blade to smite the gods is something that is very interesting to me, because it once again connects to Agarthans. We know that one of the main Agarthan goals is to slay Sothis, to slay the Fellstar. So if he was given a blade to smite the gods, and it's the legacy of his forebearers, then that's just really, really indicating he is an Agarthan descendant, or in some way associated with factions of Agarthans. I find it kind of interesting that Theodora's crew here kind of look like early game bandits. They really look like those just generic grunts that you would fight in like the first 3, 4, maybe 5 chapters of a Fire Emblem game. You know, just these guys with very blatantly evil designs. I mean, this guy, mustache and an eye patch, what more do you want? So the fact that they have this outfits, this design style, and they're with Theodora, maybe she is more of an antagonistic force in other routes. Maybe if you don't use her perspective, she allies with bandits or something like that. Could be a possibility. She also mentions the crime of murdering her father. Wouldn't be a Fire Emblem game without a dead father. We all thought it was Kai's dad who was gonna die, but maybe he's safe. Maybe the dead dad quota has been filled already. A lot of really interesting things here that I want to talk about. First of all is the calendar system. The calendar system is back from Three Houses, but it looks a little bit different here. First off, if we look at the year is listed as 1449. Now that seems to indicate that this is going to be a sequel to Three Houses. The reason why I say seems to indicate rather than confirms is because there is something to note, and that's Three Houses uses the Imperial calendar. The calendar that's used in Three Houses is specifically the Imperial calendar that was implemented by the Adrestrian Empire. So why would Dagda use the Imperial calendar? We do know for a fact that the months are different. They have different names to them, so that's already an indication that Dagda uses a separate calendar. Whether or not that means the years are different, we don't really know. It's hard to say. Personally, I've been on Team Sequel Theory since the first trailer, so I would be personally fine with this being set 300 or so years after Three Houses, but it's really hard to say it's definitively confirmed based off of a calendar that we don't know if it lines up perfectly with the Three Houses calendar system. The other thing to note here is how exploration and free time works. We have 172 turns left, a day deadline. Presumably there might be some kind of day or night cycle considering that there's a sun emblem there. So this is really different from how Three Houses handled its calendar system. Now 172 turns, that sounds like a lot, but I don't think it's going to be as long as it seems. I really do feel like maybe different activities will cost more turns. Maybe if you travel to another area outside of the capital, going on a skirmish, maybe doing a paralogue, that thing is going to cost extra turns. So you have to kind of balance your time out that way. There's also activity points that could be considered. So I don't think that even though 172 turns sounds like a long time, I don't think you're going to be spending hours and hours and hours and hours in the hub world. Now, personally, for me, I love hub worlds. I don't really care or mind how long we spend there, but I know that is a point of contention, and I just don't think that there's reason to be concerned about that high number. So here we can see different types of training: infantry training, heavy training, mage training, or mounted training. So this seems to correlate with different classes, different weapons. It seems to be really reusing the class system and the way of reclassing the Three Houses handle things. To begin the training, there's a motivation cost and a gold cost. I feel like motivation is most likely going to be this game's version of activity points. So maybe you start off with a small amount of motivation, you can only do so many activities during the day, and then as the story progresses, as you increase your level, you gain more motivation, and that allows you to do more things in each day. We also see that learning combat arts function how it did in Three Houses, and also recruiting characters works the way that it did in Three Houses. You're presented with the option to give a character a gift, read their bio information, or recruit them. So this is probably going to be very similar to recruiting characters in Three Houses, where you had to get them to a certain support level, or you needed to have certain skill level yourself to be able to recruit them. Of note here is that if we look at the calendar system here, in this one, Lita only has 81 turns left. So again, it seems like a general amount of turns to do things, with different events and different activities costing different turns, and then also having motivation points for specific activities. That seems like a very balanced way of handling the hub world, giving you the freedom to do different things, to branch out and use your time as you feel best fit, while also giving you a set deadline to be able to take care of what you need to before the next story mission. Looking at this character specifically, just a couple of things I want to note. First off, I have to say, green hair. Anytime there's a character with green hair, the question you need to ask is, are you a Manakete? Or in this case, I guess it would be, are you a Nabatean? Also of note, the ears are covered, so I don't want to just immediately assume that this is a Manakete Nabatean, but green hair, covered ears, I'm just saying. The design scheme is very interesting. The design of this character kind of reminds me a bit of Byleth. Now, I don't think this character is related to Byleth in any way. Even if they are a Nabatean, I don't really see a Byleth connection here, but I do see kind of some similarities in terms of the character design. If anything, honestly, I think there could be a possibility that this might be Flayn. Now, I know Flayn's hair was a different shade of green, but in Three Hopes, we did see that Flayn had yellow hair at some point, so I don't think hair color is really that big of an indicator or really makes that big of a difference. If it is Flayn, that'd be pretty crazy. I'm not really betting on it, but I mean, it's possible. Also of note is the charm necklace that she's wearing also has the crest of Albin. Whether or not she herself has the crest of Albin or if it's just a decoration, that's yet to be seen. Here we can see a huge map with a lot of different places to visit, a lot of different things to do, and I think this is where the bulk of your traveling time, your turns of the clock, is going to be spent. I think the further out that you go, the further that you travel, the more turns it's going to take, and the less time that you're going to have for other activities. So maybe there are going to be some paralogs that are going to be sent further out, maybe some side quests, some skirmishes, maybe you can get resources, exploration, all sorts of different options. But I think this is how the turn system is going to be utilized. By going to different places, exploring outwards, and everything that you do consumes time before the next story mission. The striped wolf is pretty cool as an enemy because I can't really remember the last time that we had animal as an enemy that we could fight in Fire Emblem. Typically you see some kind of corrupted animal or somebody riding on the animal like what we saw in Engage, but just a wolf on itself, I don't think we've really seen something like this before. We see that we can once again spend time with our allies, have meals with them, build our relationship, and again, gotta say, love these designs, love these outfits. It appears here as though there's going to be an exploration type system. Maybe it might be something similar to Gaiden's exploration in terms of those dungeons, or it might be something different and more so just kind of like free roaming around the map. Either way, this is really cool, really interesting. I also like how it makes note of total HP, magic left, this kind of exploration thing. Pretty interesting, pretty cool. A very minor thing here, but I feel like the colors are very light. I feel like typically Fire Emblem uses more of a darker shade of blue, and here the player face text, the UI, the character outline, the health bars, everything looks like a really light shade of blue. I don't have a problem with it, I think it looks nice, but it just stands out to me. Another character worth highlighting here in Ursula. Main reason I want to highlight her is because looking at her design just visually, you can already see parallels to Marianne, but what's worth noting is that she does in fact have the crest of the beast. That was Marianne's crest, and she was the only individual to have that crest. So this seems to be another case of a direct connection to a Three Houses character. A new character, Sirocco here, is a shaman. I don't actually remember when was the last Fire Emblem game to have shamans, but I feel like it's been a while since we've had a class of shaman. Interesting to note is that he is using thunder magic, not dark magic, which is more typically what you associate with shamans, but still, pretty nice to have the class back. These shadow arts are super interesting to me because I really feel like it's going to be one of the central highlights of the main characters. I kind of wonder if other characters are also going to have shadow arts or if it's going to be something exclusive to the main characters. If other characters do have them, I doubt that it's going to be anything this powerful. Here we can see Kai just completely decimate an entire section of the enemy forces from a distance away. So this is something that has to be pretty well balanced, and if every character is able to do something like this, then that's just going to be a lot of power for the player. Still though, I don't think only the main characters having shadow arts would be really fun, so I'm hoping there's more to play around with. And here, one of the big highlights of the trailer is a view of what is presumably our antagonist, or at least our antagonistic force. Here we have notes of the underworld, so that's something pretty new, pretty different from what Three Houses worked with. This character here, who descends from the sky, appearing almost as a form of salvation, is a character of note that is going to be very interesting to see what exactly their role is and their purpose. They're very much set up to be some kind of almost divine or angelic-like figure. This is also backed up by a lot of extra additional evidence that we have from the Dagden collection. For starters, from the art book, we can tell that the character's name is Eshmel. We also know that this character might actually be the Avatar. This is because on the cover art for the box, as well as the cover art for the game, we can see this character and a female variant of this character in the center, surrounded by the four main characters. If they are an avatar, then I have to wonder, what exactly is going to be their role or their connection to these four main characters? We know that we have to choose one of these characters to support, but how exactly does Eshmel fit into that? I'm also curious about Eshmel's relationship with Sothis. Eshmel's design is very, very similar to Arvol's design from Three Hopes. They both have a lot of similarities in the sense of this white, almost pureness to them. In terms of their name Eshmel, that's most likely derived from Ishmael, which is the firstborn son of Abraham. To add on to that, on the art book page for Eshmel, there's a description that reads, Herald of the Pale Raven. In the first trailer, we saw Dietrich fighting with a mysterious woman who was dressed in all white, the infamous guns in Fire Emblem moment. I'm really curious as to who this woman is in terms of her relationship with Eshmel, considering he's also a character that's dressed all in white. At first I thought maybe she might be female Eshmel, but comparing her design with the box art cover of the female variant for Eshmel, they're pretty much different characters. They don't look alike at all. But the fact that she is all dressed in white, and again, the fact that she has a gun, I do think there is some sort of connection to Eshmel in this character. The fact that Dietrich is fighting her, that could be leading more towards a Garthen theory if Dietrich is fighting against Eshmel and Eshmel has some sort of connection towards Sothis. Now this is a very, very wild theory, but I kind of want to say, what if Eshmel is Byleth? Now, hear me out here. The reason why I'm saying this is because we know that Sothis is involved in some way. What if Sothis sends Eshmel as a form of divine intervention? Something to guide the other characters. Whoever we choose to support and whichever route we choose to play, Sothis sends Eshmel to guide that character. As for why I think Eshmel might be Byleth, well, if we're operating under the belief that this is a sequel, that still begs the question as to where this Sothis came from. In Three Houses, Sothis merged together with Byleth. So if there's now this adult Sothis entity, what happened to Byleth? It begs the question there. And so what if Sothis, in regaining their consciousness and adult form, separated from Byleth, transforming Byleth into this angelic divine figure of Eshmel? It's a crazy theory. It's wild. I don't even know how likely it is to be true, but something is just telling me that there is more to Eshmel than we know. If this is the Avatar character, then why in the hub world do we play as the main character we're choosing? We see Kai in the hub world. We see Leda exploring the dungeons. So Eshmel clearly isn't there. Eshmel isn't presented as your other Avatar characters. What if they're more of an observer, a guider, and they only intervene when utterly necessary as sent by Sothis? I don't know. It's hard to say, and again, wild crackpot theory, but I just feel there has to be some kind of connection between Eshmel and Sothis, and furthermore, Eshmel and Byleth. One final note for the crackpot Eshmel is Byleth theory. This weapon that Eshmel wields, it's a spear. You can clearly see that it is a spear, but it seems to be a spear that's put together and held together. What if that's the sword of the creator? What if that's the sword of the creator that over time was damaged and destroyed and had to be repaired and reshaped into a spear? You can kind of see some similarities, and if you put it right next to the sword of the creator, it doesn't line up perfectly, but again, it could be withered and damaged over time. I mean, if Chrom is able to have the falchion, that's also Marth's falchion, but they look different because over time it got weathered, who's to say the same thing couldn't happen to the sword of the creator that turned it into a spear that Eshmel Byleth now uses? Crackpot theory. My second crackpot theory, which is much less of a crackpot theory and more so, I just think it would be really funny. What if the evil Nabatean cult's underworld lady and the Divine Sovereign, what if they're bitter exes and the whole plot of the story is just humanity got caught in the nastiest divinity breakup ever? That's not a crackpot theory, I just think that'd be funny. And lastly, we get to see Sothis wielding an axe, which is actually surprising. I always assumed Sothis would use a spear, considering that Rhea uses a spear. But using an axe, I can see it. I can see it being fitting for her. As for what exactly is happening here, or who Sothis is fighting, it's really hard to say. But it definitely seems as if though Sothis is going to be playing more of a prominent role, and not just be a fanservice character, which is something I'm very excited about. A bit of additional information, not mentioned in the trailer itself, but rather found from the game's description, is that it mentions a time-traveling saga. And now Sothis is no stranger to time. There's of course the Divine Pulse time manipulation, and as well as Sothis' line of both sides of time are now revealed to you. What if the time traveling saga is Sothis traveling back in time and sending Eshmel as this divine intervention messenger back in time? What if Sothis comes from a ruined future or a future where the villains win, and thus she sends Eshmel back in time in order to intervene and prevent this negative future from happening? And the way that this is prevented is by choosing one of the champions, choosing one of the characters to follow, to guide, and to lead with. Just an interesting idea, because I honestly don't know what else time travel could work. There's of course the option that time travel means we get to see Three Houses characters themselves, but I really don't want that. For as much as I love Three Houses and I love that this is set in the Three Houses world, I kind of don't want direct Three Houses characters showing up, with limited exceptions. Sothis makes sense, Byleth would make sense, even Rhea or the Agarthans would make sense. But like, I don't want a Three House student showing up. I really do think that the time travel is going to be restricted within the context of the own game and not opening up to time traveling to Fodlan in the events of Three Houses. That feels like it would be a bit too much fanservice. And we finally got our release date, September 17th. Why did you have to release in September? That is when I am going to be very busy, and I don't know how I'm going to manage playing this game on top of work and school, but I'll figure something out. If we get another trailer, I'll react to that one. I'll do the same thing. If we don't get any more trailers and we just get news drops, I'll probably just tweet about it or post about it on Blue Sky or talk about it in my Discord server. But either way, definitely going to be keeping up with the news cycle for this game. This trailer, I feel like it definitely provided a lot of answers, but it raised way more questions. There's still so little that we know about what exactly is going on, and I feel like that's both a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it leaves room for guessing, it leaves room for theorizing, it leaves room for crackpot Eshmel is Byleth theories, but at the same time, we waited 9 months for this. And I feel like after waiting for 9 months, I was hoping for more clarity or just more directness. This trailer probably would have been great if it was like 4, even 6 months after the first one. But 9 months and we just get more vagueness, and the game is releasing in 3 months. I don't know. I'm looking forward to the game. I'm still really excited for it. I'm still really hyped. I still really love everything that we're getting. But there's just so many questions and things from the first trailer that were not touched on here at all. Like the lady with the gun. We saw nothing about that. We didn't get more guns in Fire Emblem. There's just a lot of things that I feel like we could get more from, and we haven't yet. So I'm really hoping these next 3 months are filled with information, are filled with news, updates. Maybe Nintendo will love us enough to give us a Fire Emblem Direct in 2 months. But I'm not holding my breath on that. It happened once. We got one Fire Emblem Direct where they announced Fire Emblem Heroes and Echoes, and it's never happened again. But whatever comes next, I'll be talking about it. I'll be looking forward to it. And yeah, let me know what you guys thought of the trailer. Anything that you found interesting, anything that you liked, any crackpot theories of your own, no matter how wild, no matter how out there. If you got the evidence for it, or you just got a strong enough argument, I'd love to hear it. If you want to further discuss Fortune Weave, or just want to chat about all things Fire Emblem, feel free to join my community Discord server, link in the description below. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys next time.